The rain poured relentlessly against the tall glass windows of the penthouse, blurring the view of New York City's skyline. Inside, the world of wealth and power stood still for a moment, a silence thick enough to make anyone's chest tighten. In the middle of the living room stood Emily, trembling, her hands resting protectively on her small belly. Across from her, wearing a custom Italian suit and a look of cold disbelief, stood Daniel Cross, the billionaire everyone admired but few truly knew. "I told you," she whispered, her voice barely audible through the storm. "I didn't do this to trap you." Daniel's jaw clenched, his eyes narrowing. "You expect me to believe this child is mine?" His voice was sharp, cutting through the air like glass. Emily flinched. "I just thought you had a right to know." He laughed, bitter, hollow. "I don't owe you anything. You were a maid, Emily. You knew what this was." Her eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't just that to me." Daniel turned his back on her, gazing out the window at the dark skyline. "Get out," he said flatly. "And don't ever come back." That night, as Emily left the building clutching her small coat around her, the rain soaked through to her bones. The city lights blurred through her tears, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly invisible. Daniel Cross had always lived by rules, his rules. Son of a business tycoon, heir to a real estate empire, and CEO of Cross Holdings, he'd learned early that emotions were liabilities. His father had drilled it into him: people will always want something from you. Don't let them in. And so he didn't. When he met Emily, she had been a quiet, gentle soul working as a maid in his Manhattan mansion. She had a smile that seemed to light up even the darkest corners of the house. She laughed softly, moved gracefully, and never looked at him the way others did, like he was a checkbook instead of a man. One late evening, after a long day of meetings, Daniel had come home drunk and lonely. Emily had stayed late cleaning. Words had been exchanged, emotions had flared, and one mistake became two, then more. But Daniel had never meant for it to mean something. When Emily told him she was pregnant, something inside him snapped, not because he doubted her, but because the thought terrified him. He saw his own father's face in his mind, cold, cruel, unloving. He couldn't be that man. But he also couldn't imagine being better. So, he ran from responsibility the only way he knew how, by pretending it didn't exist. Months passed. Emily struggled alone. Her belly grew, her savings vanished, and every day became a battle. She rented a small basement apartment in Queens, working part-time jobs until she couldn't anymore. There were nights she slept hungry, but she never once regretted keeping the baby. When her daughter, Lily, was born, Emily cried for hours, not because of the pain, but because of the beauty. The baby had Daniel's dark curls, but her skin tone was different, golden brown, deep, rich. Her eyes sparkled hazel under the hospital lights. Emily held her tight. "You're perfect," she whispered, kissing her tiny hand. But whispers spread fast. The nurses talked, people looked, and soon Daniel's world came crashing in through gossip columns and headlines. Billionaire's ex-maid gives birth to alleged love child. Daniel's lawyer called. "Do you want to address it, sir?" He didn't. He signed a paper, wired money through a settlement, and shut the world out again. He thought that was the end. 3 years later, fate decided otherwise. Daniel's company sponsored a charity event for underprivileged children. It wasn't his idea, his PR team had arranged it to soften his public image. Cameras flashed, reporters smiled, and Daniel stood at the podium reciting words he barely believed. That's when he saw her. A little girl in a faded pink dress, sitting on the floor near the donation booth, humming softly as she tried to fix a broken toy car. Her curls were dark and messy, her cheeks round, her eyes, hazel. For a moment, Daniel couldn't breathe. He blinked, trying to shake the thought away. It can't be. But then he saw the woman walking toward the child. She had the same soft brown hair, the same quiet grace he remembered all too well. Emily. Daniel froze. She hadn't noticed him yet. She lifted the little girl in her arms, smiling as Lily showed her the toy. Emily kissed her forehead, and the tenderness in that gesture made Daniel's chest ache. When Emily finally looked up and saw him, her face went pale. "Emily," he said, stepping closer, unsure what to feel. "Mr. Cross," she said quietly, standing straighter, as if bracing herself. His gaze fell on the child again. "She's Emily didn't answer. She just nodded once. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The noise of the event faded into a dull hum. Then Daniel did something he hadn't planned. He knelt down. "Hi," he said softly to the little girl. "What's your name?" She giggled shyly. "Lily. That's a pretty name." Emily shifted uneasily. "We should go." But Daniel's eyes lingered on Lily. Something about her, the way she smiled, the warmth she radiated, broke through the walls he'd built around his heart. He couldn't stop thinking about her. Days later, Daniel sent flowers. Then a letter. Then he showed up at their small apartment. Emily wanted to slam the door in his face, but Lily ran to the door, laughing. "Mommy, it's the man from the party." Daniel smiled awkwardly, holding a small teddy bear. "I brought something for Lily." Emily crossed her arms. "You can't just show up here." "I know," he said quietly. I wanted to see her again." "She's not a charity case, Daniel." "I never said she was." His voice cracked slightly. Look, I know I was cruel before. I was scared. I didn't know how to be a father." He nodded. Emily's eyes softened for a second, but she quickly looked away. "It's too late." But it wasn't. Over the next few weeks, Daniel kept coming back, not to impress Emily, but to know Lily. He took her to the park, read her stories, taught her how to build little Lego houses. Slowly, she began calling him Mr. D, and each time she laughed, something inside him healed a little. One evening, Emily walked into the living room to find Daniel asleep on the couch, Lily curled up on his chest, holding his tie like a blanket. Her heart twisted at the sight. That's when she realized, he wasn't pretending anymore. But the world is never kind to slow miracles. News of Daniel's hidden daughter exploded in the media again. His board of directors questioned his judgment, shareholders worried about scandal, and his ex-girlfriend, a famous model, went public with claims that Emily had trapped him. Daniel called a press conference. As cameras flashed and microphones surrounded him, he took a deep breath. "You all want to know if the rumors are true," he said. "Yes, they are. I have a daughter. Her name is Lily." Gasps echoed. "I made mistakes. I turned my back on something precious because I was afraid. But fear doesn't define me anymore. Love does. And I'll spend the rest of my life proving that to her, and to her mother." For the first time, Daniel smiled in front of the cameras, not the fake corporate smile, but a real one. Life didn't turn into a fairy tale overnight. Emily still hesitated to trust him fully, and Daniel still fought his old instincts to retreat when things got hard. But every morning, he found Lily sitting at the breakfast table, smiling up at him with those hazel eyes that had changed everything. One rainy afternoon, 3 years to the day he had sent Emily away, Daniel knelt down again, this time with a small velvet box in his hand. "Emily," he said softly, his voice trembling. "I can't change the past. But I can choose every tomorrow, with you and Lily." Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "You don't have to make up for what you did, Daniel. You already have, by being her father." He smiled through his tears. "Maybe. But I want to be more than that. I want to be your family." Emily looked down at Lily, who was watching them with wide, hopeful eyes. The little girl grinned and said, "Say yes, Mommy." Emily laughed through her tears. "Yes. Years later, people would still talk about Daniel Cross, the billionaire who'd changed the way people saw him, not through business but through love. He still ran his empire, but now his favorite title wasn't CEO. It was Dad. And on quiet nights, when the city lights glowed beyond their apartment window, Daniel would hold Lily close and whisper, "You saved me, sweetheart. You showed me what love really means." Emily would smile, resting her head on his shoulder. Because sometimes, the most powerful transformations don't happen in boardrooms or balance sheets. They happen in hearts, when a man who once rejected love learns that the color of a child's skin, the softness of her laughter, and the purity of her heart can change everything.